In this video I would like to share with you my DIY projects for fall and Halloween, which I made out of IKEA items. For the first project I used plastic pumpkins and LED candles to make something like pumpkin lamps. I start with underlining a candle at the bottom of one of the pumpkins and use it as a guideline for cutting out a slot for the candle. Be careful while working with a knife, don't rush and don't press too hard on it. If you are also using the same pumpkins, I would advise to start with the long ones, because their plastic is thinner and easier to cut, so you can train a bit. Better to make the hole a bit smaller, so if something you have some room for mistakes and you can just correct the form bit by bit. When the slot fits perfect, I put a battery into the candle and the candle into the pumpkin. Do not press the candle into pumpkin too far, I'm just pressing it against the table and it's perfectly inside. And this is how they look in the dark. For the second project I used coasters and tissues with pumpkins, some white acrylic paint or better ivory, and decoupage glue. I take one tissue and rip off little pieces with the prints. It's better not to use any scissors, because rough edges will help the picture to fade into the basic paint. Then I painted middles of the coasters with white paint and glued the pictures on it using a flat brush. It's very quick and easy, but looks nice and also could be an idea for little present for your tea fans, like me. For the third project I picked up those cool bottles. My plan is to put some demons inside them, like in the Disenchantment series. First I measured the circumference of the bottle and the height of the future demon, and drew a rectangle on the paper. This will be my workspace to place the demon. Afterwards, I cut the rectangle out and placed it on the bottle to better understand how it will look. I sketched the demon and cut it out. Checking how it looks in the bottle, just fine. I didn't have black cardboard, so I underlined my test demon on a regular one and painted it black with acrylic paint. The same way I made the demon lawyer and the demon girl. When the paint dried, I cut the demons out, and for cutting out the small details I used a knife. All of the damages I caused I covered with black paint again. And then glued a piece of plastic to the back side of the empty spaces. At first I wanted to make some more holes, cover them with painted plastic to get light in different colors, but it didn't work out, so I'm not showing that part. But the ribbon and the tie I painted anyway, so it has a different color and still can be lightened up. Because of the failed experiment with the holes, I cut the sides of the cardboard and just placed some white paper instead, so we can't see the background through the eyes of the demons. For the big bottle I decided to make a complete silhouette of Lucy that I took from this fan art. I painted him black, but the contour I kept white to cut it out later. For additional support, I glued the drawing on a cardboard, and when the glue dried, cut out all of the painted elements and glued them onto the pieces of plastic package as well. Now the contour is transparent and we still can see where the legs and arms are. Afterwards, I placed him inside the bottle and added the lights. As a final touch, I also added some rope to the top of the bottles, which is, by the way, as well from IKEA. And here are some shots I made in the darkness. Which demon do you like the most? The last project for today is this lantern that I'm going to paint with window paint. I measured all of the glass walls and the door of the lantern and cut 4 paper rectangles fitting into measurements. This is needed to better plan the size of the drawing. For the first illustration, I was using a wallpaper from over the garden wall as a reference. Actually, I almost just copied it, just placed characters closer to each other and made them bigger. With environment, I didn't go too detailed, just because the window paint is not really fitting for too detailed work. When the sketch is done, I covered it with plastic foil and started underlining it with a black contour paint. I started from the middle, so I will not accidentally touch the painting with my hand. According to the manual, I have to let it dry for 2 hours before starting to paint it, but I was so slow that most of the parts were already dry enough when I finished. My mistake on this picture was that I thought that the grey bottle contained the grey paint, but it was silver. It's perfect for the teapot and the axe, but not for clothes, so after I fixed the painting on the glass, I just scratched the paint away from the pants and the coat and painted it with grey that I mixed with black and white. With the following pictures, I didn't do this mistake again. For the second picture, I used an image where the boys are joining a frog orchestra. I kept them as a center element and added frog musicians around, just in a different order and closer to each other. One of the frogs came out a bit off, so I cut him out and placed a bit closer to the middle. In such moments, I envy digital artists. By underlining frogs, a few drops of the paint fell on places they didn't belong, but it's not a problem. I just waited when paint is dry, easily removed it and finished spots that I had to skip. For this project, I bought the cheapest set of the paint from Amazon, so I had just 10 colors, but by mixing the paint, I could get endless amount of colors. In fact, you can make any color if you have these 5: black, white, red, yellow and blue. For the third sketch, I used 3 images of the pumpkin city, where the boys are stepping on pumpkins at the field where Enoch attacks them, and just the face of one of the citizens. This drawing I messed up a bit because I didn't let the contour dry and because it was generally hard to paint all of these little elements. After the paint is dry, I was able to correct it a bit to look acceptable. For the fourth picture, I took images where the woodsman is meeting the beast after he captured Gregory. Here I also made characters bigger and closer to each other. For this particular illustration I had to mix so many shades of grey, maybe even 50. The interesting idea was to add some silver to the highlights on the woodsman's clothes, so it looks even more lightened up. One more important thing I forgot to mention is that the finished picture has to dry for 24 hours and only then you can place it on glass like a sticker. To check if it's dry, look at the thickest spots of the painting. If the paint got transparent, it's dry. The very first sticker was hard to take off and place because the layer of paint I made was too thin. Because of that, I accidentally stretched the sticker a bit and it got a bit bigger than intended. But I just cut the excess and it was fine. After placing the picture on the lantern, I corrected the contour a bit and switched the paint on pans to regular grey. The pumpkin wall needed so many corrections that I almost contoured it once again. The frog illustration fit without any problems and didn't need any corrections, because I corrected it on the go. For the beast, I just had to cut a bit from the bottom and add some contour to the right side. And here I made photos of each side of the lantern in the dark, so you can see how it worked out. Inside of the lantern I hang the same string of lights like I used for the big bottle with Lucy, just because the candles are too weak for such a big lamp. To spread the light evenly, I just fixed the string to the top of the lantern, so it's actually hanging in there. By the way, if you are searching for more Halloween DIYs, please check my other videos with little creepy anime creatures that I made. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video!